I just want to do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You are the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Welcome to Life Today Live. I'm Randy Robinson. Great to have you here. I got to tell you, when growing up and reading through the Old Testament, even as an adult, a lot of times you see there's like 613 laws they tell us in the Old Testament, and some of them you're like, I don't know what that's about, and we don't live under that law. I get that, we're in a new covenant, but then there's a lot of laws that you go, okay, why did even God say that? And many of those revolve around diet and health. And some of them you go, okay, don't touch the dead carcass of an animal. Well, we get that scientifically now, but back then they had no idea. It's like, okay, God was kind of shortcutting what he knew, which was nature and creation. Why? To just create random rules? No. To help his people live long and healthy. So you go, okay, well, maybe we should look at some of these other principles and not take them as you do this or you're in sin or whatever. Just like what is God trying to do when he's telling us these things? He's trying to help us. And the dietary laws are very interesting. Can we learn from them? Well, I certainly have, and I think today you will too. My guest has a new book out. It is called The Biblio Diet. It looks just like that. It's written by Jordan Rubin, who many of you have heard of. But Jordan, he's got an incredible testimony and his health struggles that brought him to this place. And we'll get entirely to all that. There's some other interviews you can watch if you want to hear his testimony. But we're going to talk about the Biblio Diet. What is that? What does it mean? How can it help us today? So appreciate you guys being here. This is going to be a fun conversation and one that will benefit you if you put these things into practice. So, Jordan, man, good to see you. Welcome back to the program.
It's good to be here, Randy. Excited to drop some biblical revelation.
Okay, look, before we get into some of the specifics on the diet thing, how do you look at the Old Testament stuff? Because let's face it, some of the stuff you're like, it's not necessarily intuitive.
Well, I think if you study deeply all of it and you study it in its context, a lot of the principles were important back then and maybe are lesser important now. And I say that importance meaning the physical side of it. I'm not discounting what God wanted to do at that time and what he wants to do today. But some of it, Randy, I bet is so profound we can't even fathom it yet. Because to your point in the open, God said, don't touch the carcass of an animal. No one had discovered bacteria or fungi or viruses or parasites for thousands of years, but he knew that. And I got to tell you, if people during the Middle Ages practiced biblical hygiene that's in the Old Testament, they could have avoided largely the bubonic plague. Like we're talking about a large portion of the world would have been saved. So I do think everything in the Bible is relevant. Mm-hmm. It might have been more relevant back then in some instances, but some is so relevant now, you could call something thousands of years old revelation. And when I was half joking, because your open got me all jiggy with it, I was wanting to talk about dropping some 411, but I'm 50 now, Randy, and my kids think I'm completely uncool. Like my jokes are bad. I have no taste in music or movies. They keep me humble, if you will. You know how that goes. But I do think that every day I read the Bible, I receive new revelation. And this morning is no different. So people don't understand that the Bible, which was written thousands of years ago, is a living book that somehow that same book we read every day, or we should, can speak to us anew based on a time and a season of our life. And I would say that people who are watching and listening, they might feel that way based on some of what we share, because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if you understand food and agriculture, you're going to understand the Bible a lot better, because so much of it, including Jesus's parables, were devoted to things that the ancient Hebrews or Israelites or early Christians we're dealing with. And so much of it is applicable today, and some of it is more advanced than we can even understand. So I'm excited to see that unfold in the future.
You know, it's interesting because when we talk about diet, most people think of diet in the short term of dropping, 20 pounds or whatever much you need to lose, just getting rid of fat. But when you talk about diet as your eating habits, your lifestyle, which it really should be, you find that diet plays not just into your weight, but it actually plays into things like inflammation, which is the cause of so many of our ailments these days. And it plays into your mental health, which is a big deal today. So let's get into some of the specifics. What are some of your kind of hot favorite areas to cover? Because I know we're barely going to scratch the surface today, but jump into something that you think is important that will help us not just, slim up for those of us that, could drop a few pounds, but will help every aspect of our lives.
Absolutely. Let me give you some high points. Number one, the Biblio Diet name was conceived about 12 years ago. I was going to write the foreword to a pastor's fitness book. And in the book, there was a lot of talk of the paleo diet, which was really popular, I'll say 5 years ago, very tied to CrossFit. Everyone was talking about it. And I kept hearing Christians say, I'm on a paleo diet or I'm going paleo. And that bothered me because the worldview of a paleo diet was very evolutionary and not following the biblical timeline or calendar. So I made a comment and said, I wish people who follow God would go around saying I'm on a Biblio diet, not a paleo diet, meaning they're eating by the book. So number one, the Biblio Diet is for you if you have a biblical worldview and want to know what God says about food, because he created food, he created us, and he created us to live in good health. And the subtitle says a lot, Randy. The Biblio Diet: Live Long, Master Metabolism, Reduce Pain, Fight Depression, and Conquer Cancer with Healing Secrets from the Bible. That's casting a pretty wide net. It gets into what you mentioned earlier on the mental or behavioral health side. And then there's the idea that all the diets that are being promoted today are restricting certain things. We see some people on a carnivore diet say plants are trying to kill you. When you're on a vegan diet, they say animals are trying to kill you.
Right.
The American Heart Association says fat is trying to kill you and salt is trying to kill you. The Biblio Diet is the first and only diet today, Randy, that recommends, not just allows, recommends red meat, bread, dairy, salt, and fat. Why do we recommend it? Because God thinks highly of all 5 of those food groups. I'm going to tell you why today, Randy. You may have never heard this. Number one, red meat is the most prized food on the Bible. It was served to angelic hosts. It was offered to other angels, including Gabriel. It was consumed by Solomon every day. Jesus consumed it. The list goes on and on. That's just red meat, the fatted calf, the prize food of anyone who could afford it. Number two, bread. Jesus was the bread of life. How could Jesus be described as something or describe himself as something that was bad? Makes no sense. Dairy, the land of milk and honey, is the promised land.
Yeah.
Salt, we are the light of the world. We're the salt of the earth. And if you follow my commandments, you will eat the fat of the land. Tell me, Randy, how diets today tell you not to eat any of those things.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it just makes no sense. So I'm going to give people a biblical worldview that will make them jump in their level of health, but also enjoy what they're eating. And I somehow believe that when you follow God, you get a double benefit, because even if science hasn't caught up to creation, God is the way, the truth, and the life through Jesus. And I believe followers of God are going to be set free. And I believe people who don't know the Lord are going to follow the Biblio Diet and get results, and then be drawn to the God who created them, the food, and the earth. So it's really multiple goals with this book. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of common sense in here, Randy, and a lot of, man, my grandmother used to do that. You're going to say that a lot because today's diet recommendations are absolutely illogical, nonsensical, non-ancient or historical, and we're going to bring all of that back.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't cheesecake mentioned in Proverbs?
It's Isaiah.
Is that Isaiah?
And they call it curds and I heard it this morning on my audio Bible. That's how I know, but it's curds and honey. But I got to tell you, when you mix curds, which is like cheese or soft cheese and honey, you're most of the way there, Randy. So I know you were trying to stump me, but sorry about that. The Bible accounts for everything.
I think you're non-stumpable. But okay, so let's get into some of those things, and because you're right, I personally don't eat a lot of red meat, and it's more taste. It's not out of any kind of conviction or anything like that. I just prefer turkey and chicken. But we do hear a lot about red meat. But you're right scripturally. Why do you think that is? It just the quantity, the way it's prepared, the amount, or is it?
Why is it vilified? Are you asking me that question? Well, Randy, this goes back to some, I would say, nefarious information based on the Seventh-day Adventist, which, depending on who you are, you could say it's a sect of Christianity or something very different. But in the early days, Ellen White, I believe, was one of the sort of revelators for Seventh-day Adventists. She believed that it was important to, let's say, curb a male's desires. So she thought if a man had no drive, he wouldn't sin. And listen, Randy, I get where she's coming from, right? So she worked with someone by the name of Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, and I'm sure you recognize that name, to create something people could eat for breakfast that would basically reduce their testosterone and therefore their urges. And he found rolled corn in the form of flakes, if eaten every morning, would cause you to have less testosterone. And while you're at it, let's not eat animal meat that's very rich in creatine, collagen, B12, iron, zinc, etc. Let's be on a plant-based diet, because that doesn't contain certain things like vitamin D and B12 that would help you be more of a man, if you know what I mean. And we now know that women need testosterone too. There's a low testosterone epidemic in women, which is causing all kinds of things. So, Randy, it seems, again, like this very mysterious reason, but this was flat out, I believe, an attack on us, all in the form of, in this case, a medical doctor who, by the way, John Harvey Kellogg had some really good ideas. Get a lot of sunshine, drink water, fast. But this idea of lowering the male impulses through lowering testosterone, libido, and all of that, there's a lot of consequences that come with it. So therefore, we got breakfast is the most important meal of the day, which is not also biblical. And then red meat is bad. Saturated fat is bad, because colleagues of John Harvey Kellogg, by the name of Dr. Keyes, did some research to prove that saturated fat and cholesterol are bad, which now means 100 million Americans are on cholesterol-lowering statins. Point being, saturated fat is good for you. Cholesterol is good for you. If you're good and eat an egg, God made the yolk with it, because even in the Bible it says don't eat an egg white. It tastes disgusting. More or less, I'm paraphrasing. An egg yolk is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, Randy, but yet in the 90s and even early 2000s, people were making egg white omelets and losing out. If I told you the vitamins and minerals in red meat and egg yolks, you'd say you're taking 2 multivitamins. This is a bunch of nonsense, and it is really an attack on our health. So the Biblio Diet will demystify eating. And I'll give you another example. If saturated fat is so bad, and I'm going to throw Bible and logic at you, Randy. So Job 29, Job's describing the prime of his life. And he said, in my prime, the streets poured out cream the streets flowed with cream and the rocks poured out olive oil. So first of all, those are two high-fat foods, but cream is loaded with saturated fat, which people say is bad. I think is wonderful. If Job, who was the most blessed man on earth prior and post when Satan took away all of his stuff and his health, he believed that having cream and olive oil every day was good. I have that in my diet every day. I agree with him. But also think about this. Flashback 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even 30. When someone is an outstanding performer, they say he's the cream of the crop. They will say if somebody is on a team and just does better than everybody else, they'll say, well, the cream always rises to the top. We wouldn't say that if it was garbage or if it was junk. Sometimes in man's wisdom, we have gone against God and hurt ourselves in the process. And my frustration is, Randy, how many lives have been lost? How many years have been lost? And when I share the message of the Biblio Diet, which the principles help me overcome cancer, help my co-author, Dr. Josh Axe, overcome an incurable spinal infection that left him debilitated. We give great stories about other people that have overcome various ailments through following the principles in the Biblio Diet. I believe that the world, and anyone who's watching, Randy, who loves God's going to believe me, the world promotes the opposite message of a biblical marriage. The world promotes an opposite message of raising children properly. The world promotes an opposite message on finance. Get everything you want now, running up the bill on your credit card, instant gratification, worry about it later. The Bible says, blessed is a man who plans an inheritance for his children's children, right? That's the opposite. And in food and diet, it's the same. However, Christians often don't want to believe that. They're like, I've got to give up enough. Don't take away my pork rinds and my bacon and my shrimp and my Diet Coke. You know what I'm saying? So we want people to understand God has a definition of food. He has a definition of filth. And I'm going to tell you in the Biblio Diet why God's people lived long and healthy and why we're not, and how to get back to God's initial design. And it's a lot more simple and delicious today than ever before.
So there's a lot there. I want one overarching principle, though, because, man, I recently I was at my doctor for my annual, because I'm old now, so we do the annual thing. And I have, something in my body that's a little out of whack. And I was like, well, let's talk about diet. Let's change the diet. And she said, that really won't do anything. She recommended a few things and some supplements. And I'm okay with supplements. But she said, and if that doesn't work, we'll put you on a drug. And I hate drugs. And I recognize they're necessary. And when I had surgery on my face, long story, I was grateful for the painkillers. So I recognize the place. I'm not like that. But it seems like we are running to the doctor for the quick fix, and it's a chemical fix. When if we would look at just what we put into our bodies on a regular basis from the standpoint you're talking about, which is a biblical standpoint, would we not be able to avoid a lot of these medical situations? And I know you're not a doctor. We're not giving medical advice, but I'm like, before we get to the doctor, and yes, we need doctors. Again, I'm not like that. But shouldn't we start with the Biblio Diet as a lifestyle, which would prevent some of these necessary medications and visits to doctors?
Well, let me say this, Randy. America has the best trauma care and emergency medical care in the world. I believe when you account for our financial wealth and our technology, we have the worst medical system for chronic degenerative diseases. And so I would say that the principles found in the Biblio Diet are great prior to going on medication, seeing a physician for a prescription, but also after medications have failed. Because most of the people, Randy, that I've coached over the years in health and wellness have already tried conventional medicine and failed. Yeah. And so the Biblio Diet begins before you need major treatments or intervention, and it really comes in afterwards, because people are so fed up that they're not getting personalized, holistic care. Instead, take this pill. How long? For the rest of my life.
Right.
Wait a minute. How long has it been studied? And Randy, that's the tough part. People are on medications for 30 years and the research has been done for 24 months. That's a real problem. And you don't know what deleterious effects can occur. And listen, you got me going here, but the Bible uses a term in the Greek called pharmakia, which is also a synonym for witchcraft. And that's where the pharmaceutical industry came from. And think of it this way. Years ago, doctors told pregnant women that they could smoke cigarettes during pregnancy, that it was just fine. And that's bad, and you're laughing. But how about this?
Crazy. It's crazy.
But Randy, how about this? A woman has nausea during her pregnancy, right? So morning sickness. And the doctor says, take this medication. It's really safe for you and your baby, and it's called thalidomide. And now we know years later that thalidomide caused a loss of limbs, an extra limb, caused dwarfism. And there's actually a term for children who were born to mothers who had the side effect called children of thalidomide. And this was a medicine, Randy, for nausea, and it caused deformities in children. All I'm saying to you is that doctors and pharmaceuticals, they do have their place, but they've over-infringed on our lives. Combined with the fact that the food industry in America is completely chemicalized. They're all in cahoots. And at the end of the day, if you're someone who wants to stand on ceremonies, I'm going to eat pork, I'm going to eat shellfish, I don't care what Leviticus 11, Deuteronomy 14 say, what I would appeal to you is this. You might want to argue theologically about Peter's dream and Jesus declaring all foods clean. But if you're dealing with health challenges, I would encourage you to avoid pork, avoid shellfish, avoid scavengers and things of that nature, and see if you don't feel better. And people say, well, can I eat pork and get to heaven? The joke is yes, and you'll get there a lot sooner. And you could add that to a lot of things. I believe that God has not changed the physiology of a pig since he created it, or a human. And Noah was told to take 7 pairs of certain animals in the ark and 1 pair of others. The 7 were going to multiply and be food, and the single pair was going to clean up the waste. That's how God intended it. It's plain and simple. I can give you theology why some of the New Testament scripture is being misinterpreted by many. But the bottom line is pork contains a lot of parasites, usually. Shellfish contains lead, cadmium, mercury, and arsenic. You want to go science, you want to go Bible, I think they're one and the same. But you take common sense and you layer in God's plan for mankind, and you've got a lifestyle that can improve your health and your children in the future generations. That's what the Biblio Diet's about. It's only been out, Randy, at the time of this recording. It's in its 7th week. So I'm excited at what I'm already hearing in terms of people's results, but it's going to be a real blessing, just like it was with the Maker's Diet so many years ago, to hear of people all over the country and world that are set free from the bondage of sickness and disease, or they are able to maintain good health when they understand what to eat, what to avoid, how to move, and even how to think.
Yeah. And, I years ago, before I ever met you, I wrote an article for a magazine cover or for a Christian magazine and talked to doctors, nutritionists, and some like exercise people, whatever you call those guys. And after that, I quit eating shrimp, and I like fried shrimp. I mean, the taste was fabulous, and I quit eating pork. I will say, now the shrimp you get because they're in the ocean, they're in the wild, they are they're the cleanup, the garbage trucks of the ocean. If it's farm raised pork, I'm guessing they're not getting fed dead flesh. Is there a difference in some of the way that the animals in the wild versus animals in the farms?
Well, first of all, a wild animal of the animals God says to eat, like a deer, are super healthy because they're eating what they're supposed to.
Yeah, I love venison.
I think with a pig, the issue is not as much what they're eating, although they will eat anything, including, you pointed out, dead flesh of other pigs.
Yes.
The issue with a pig is it's a monogastric animal. It has a single stomach. So think of dogs, cats, skunks, rats, and humans. We are all monogastrics. When God said don't eat animals that unless they have a split hoof and they eat the cud or the grass, he was telling us to eat animals that have a 4-chamber stomach called ruminant animals that take vegetables that we can't digest and turn them into highly nutritious foods. So the delineation, but it isn't simply what a pig eats. And if we have organic pork, that's the answer. Well, unless you're going to have 24-hour surveillance on these pigs, you're not going to know what they're eating. But it really has to do with, Randy, their inability to process waste material the way that cows, goats, sheep, deer, bison, buffalo, the whole cadre of red meat. And when science catches up to God's plan, it's amazing. And here's the deal. I'm not telling you, if you're a bacon connoisseur, that turkey bacon tastes as good. I'm not even going to lie to you.
Oh, I like it.
Beef bacon, on the other hand, Randy, if you have had that.
I haven't.
That's real bacon, and it comes from the part of the animal, the stomach, where you get bacon. Turkey bacon's good, but it's made out of the thigh meat, et cetera. It's just not bacon, right? So if you're a bacon person, try beef bacon. It tastes like bacon, and you will love it. And Randy, we talked about this off the air. What makes the Biblio Diet different than the other books I've written, the Maker's Diet, for example? One of the main differences that people care about the most, the foods I recommend are available virtually everywhere. I remember, Randy, we talked 22 years ago when the Maker's Diet came out. And if you read the book, I think it's amazing information. But the resource guide, where do you get that special goat milk yogurt? And where do you find this bread? You had to order it from some little old lady in Austin, and we basically ruined her business because she had like 10,000 orders and she was ready to take like 50. But point being, Randy, if you shop at Costco, Walmart, Target, Whole Foods, Sprouts, Publix, H-E-B, I know where you are.
H-E-B around here.
Dominates. You can find many of the foods, if not all of them, or order online, Instacart, whatever. That's what's great, is that the Biblio Diet is a simple solution for people who want to seek the heart of God in how they can be set apart. I love the Maha movement and what it stands for. I think what Secretary Kennedy is doing is amazing, courageous, all these things. But I don't want a man or a movement to get credit for what God already told his people thousands of years ago.
Yeah. And, I think there's a shift that we have to kind of go through. And I fight this still to this day. And it's like, I know it up here, but sometimes I get lazy, which is moving from eating for pleasure. Well, I don't really eat for escapism. I know a lot of people do, and that's a whole other level. But eating can you eat for healing?
Yes, you can. And Randy, I got to tell you, it can be pleasurable. So people will often say to me, Jordan, what did you eat today? Well, I personally practice an intermittent fasting lifestyle. So right now, Randy, we are afternoon, and I haven't eaten yet, because I don't believe breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and I believe we should be eating in a shorter time frame. But when I do eat, I eat really yummy food. Like last night, for example, we had this really great, I would say it's a brisket, and some of my kids shredded. My kids had tortillas with it. They made like brisket tacos, pot roast tacos, whatever. And these were almond flour tortillas because we think they're a little bit healthier. I had sweet potato. It looked like hash. And some of us had whole sweet potatoes. The other day when I was on an interview, they said, what did you eat? And I said, I had an open-faced sourdough burger with cheese and onions and pickles and avocado.
Nice.
I had fries that were homemade, cooked in either tallow, which is beef fat, or olive oil, depending. And I had a pan-fried plantain in butter, which since I went to Costa Rica on a vacation, I've been eating plantains every week. They're good.
Amazing. Yeah. And
a little bit of Cubano food.
It's different than Cuba. I've been to Costa Rica and eaten the plantains down there, and I got to tell you, if you can get that. Okay.
So anyway, my point, Randy, is what I just told you, I'm hungry now. So
I know, me too.
I enjoyed that food, but I can tell you that it nourished my body. It was loaded with nutrients. It satiated me, etc. Now, if someone's dealing with cancer or someone's dealing with multiple sclerosis, would I often recommend more of a healing diet with some further restrictions, etc.? Probably. But for the average person, even for one who has health challenges, you can eat delicious food. Both Dr. Axe and I are foodies. We love to eat. And that's why I said in the Biblio Diet, when you can eat red meat, bread, dairy, salt, and fat, right there, people can breathe a sigh of relief and say, you know what? This is a diet I can live with.
Yeah, right. Well,
because you're going to love what you eat.
Yeah,
you
and enjoy.
You need to spend more time understanding it. It's not fair for us to advocate our health to doctors who see us for 7 minutes every however long, 6 months at our appointments, or to big food companies, big pharma. We need to take an interest in our health because in the past, our ancestors spent a lot of time procuring and preparing food, whether it was hunting, whether it was raising. It was a big part of life to make sure that people could eat. Today, convenience helps, but it also hurts.
Yeah.
And I want people to start seeing their body and food the way God does. And I promise you, you can live long, master metabolism, reduce pain, fight depression, and even conquer cancer with healing secrets from the Bible. Best of all, you can honor God while doing it.
Okay. Just so I know where we're at. When you say conquer cancer, is that a medical claim, or is that what are you saying in that? Because I know you got to be careful with what you say, and we don't want to make promises that won't come true, right?
Okay, let me say this, Randy. I believe that God created an answer for cancer right out of Scripture. Now, what I'm not saying is that you shouldn't get tested. You shouldn't see a doctor, or in this case, an oncologist.
Yeah.
You should go eat wheatgrass smoothies all the time. What I'm saying is that wherever you're at in your life, if you've been given a cancer diagnosis, we're going to help you overcome, conquer. Will that involve chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery? Randy, most people we work with cancer have already done those or are currently doing it. Yeah. It could, but anyone who's battling cancer, the Biblio Diet has something that can help them have greater success. You can call it any kind of claim you want. I heard this from the Lord. It's revelation, but it is coming right out of two scriptures, Ezekiel 47:12, Revelation 22:2. While not mentioning the word cancer, it talks about God's plan for healing, curing, or remedying diseases. It's God's therapy. Okay. I call it healing leaves, and it comes right out of chapter 14 of the book.
Okay, yeah, and I want to be clear on that. I have someone, not my sister, who you know, but someone else close to our family who didn't seek medical treatment with cancer, and I would never advocate that. And so, but at the same time, you know, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I'm not a medical expert. I believe that processed sugar feeds cancer. Is that right?
Absolutely. Any sugar feeds cancer cells. Now, that doesn't mean, Randy, that someone battling cancer can't consume any sugar or carbohydrates, but there's good evidence that a sugar-restricted diet is a strategy to overcome cancer in certain periods of time, what you would call a ketogenic diet, where you're switching fuel sources. Okay. But no doubt, sugar adds to cancer cell growth. But here's the good news, Randy. What causes cancer cell death? Pomegranates, other fruits and vegetables, certain nutrients in meats and eggs, and things that people consume biblically. Grapes have compounds that can cause cancer cells to die. Wow. Dates do as well. Certain fractions of grains, believe it or not. So the same way sugar feeds cancer, there are certain foods that God created and compounds within them that can destroy cancer cells. Yeah. That being said, Randy, anyone who conquers cancer, no matter what method they use, is still conquering. We want to reach people where they're at and help them have better results. We don't tell you how to choose your medical future. We don't tell you everything you should do, but we say and reflect what God talks about in his word for healing. And no matter if you're on chemotherapy, radiation, and had surgery versus if you're going a quote unquote natural route, why wouldn't you want to include what God calls therapy, medicine, or a cure?
And that's really my point. We know that what you put in your body affects these things, and it's not just cancer. It's inflammation, it's diabetes, it's all of our health, right? We know there is a direct correlation between what we eat and what kind of health we have, good or bad. And so all right, I got to wrap this up, but I got to ask one final question. In the Biblio Diet, because we've talked a lot about principles, we've hit on a little bit of food, but do you give us some pretty good, I don't know, even recipes or some, something to really go, okay, this is a plan I can live by and enjoy, like you say. Do you get that specific in the book?
We do, but we also give you the best and the worst and everything in between examples of, I mentioned meat, bread, dairy, sweeteners, seasonings, fats, oils, herbs, spices, you name it. Because it isn't about, hey, you can eat any bread, because I have once heard this saying that I've repeated thousands of times: the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. And I truly believe white bread is garbage and shouldn't be eaten. But what bread is the best and what dairy is the best? How do I find it? How do I prepare it? So, Randy, we do give recipes. We give a sample eating plan. We give a plan to integrate fasting into your diet and lifestyle. We tell you what to look for in a grocery store, because let's face it, telling somebody that they should change their diet is okay. Telling them how and walking them through it step by step, that is what people need, and that's exactly what we do.
I love it. Okay. I just want to make sure people understood. You can get the Biblio Diet, rather, I should say, wherever you pick up books. And Jordan, I look forward, I know we're talking soon for the broadcast show, and we're going to really cover this very well. So a little bit of a teaser. You guys have to wait until the end of right at the end of the year. Actually, the 1st of January is when that will air. But don't put this off, we can do this, and God's word is true, and it's life. That's the beautiful thing about it. It's life. When we look at the Old Testament law as just death, and I understand Paul's correlation there, then we miss, I think, some of the life that is in it. And when God says, hey, that food's good, I think we should go, hey, that food's good. So thank you for bringing that to us today, Jordan. I appreciate you.
Been my pleasure.
Appreciate all you guys watching. Hit that share button and go, hey, tell everybody, hey, look, good news. We're having steak. So there's good news. And
with some butter on it, Randy. With some butter on it.
Irish butter, I hope.
Irish is good.
Okay. It's all good. All right. Appreciate you guys. Come back. We've got more for you next time here on Life Today Live.